welcome to Connections for Life. I am Ted Pete.
Stop.
I'm Jack Kubo.
I'm Ted Cooper.
I've never been on one.
I hate you guys.
I love
Being
you.
an announcer.
This isn't even that funny, but like for some reason it just was. I don't know. No one else is gonna find this funny. But we just spent. Just wait a minute. We just spent the last 5 minutes trying to explain to Chad that he needs to talk like a country bumpkin with like a dip in his mouth, and he can't do it. It's horrible. So Teddy started giving him examples, and that's where you came into the.
And it's amazing when I do it. Apparently, I have some roots in it. So.
That's because where you live. I think you're part of that.
Yeah. Hey, I have been to a few of those monster truck pulls in my day.
You start saying dango. I've never been either.
Is that the score? 75?
No, that's how much time you have left.
Is that Gravedigger behind you?
It is
the only monster truck I know.
That's the only one anybody knows.
No, you gotta remember Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot was the power one, man.
Bigfoot and Gravedigger.
Gravedigger was like the one who dethroned Bigfoot. Like Bigfoot was.
I'm trying to turn off my glasses now.
I'm trying to just end this.
Oh, wrong one. My bad.
Now you're Scuba Steve.
Oh.
How's it going, fellas?
I haven't laughed that hard in a bit. That was fun.
Listen, what's going on, guys? I miss you. How you been?
Dude.
You know,
Joe's his normal enthusiastic self. Chad's
high energy.
Snapchat filter on his face.
High energy.
I do kind of.
Yeah. It's like the D wrinkle.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Do you have one on, really?
Hold on, make a duck.
The camera just does it. Whenever I have snap camera on it, it just makes me look funny.
Do the duck face.
It just makes you look pretty.
I guess. So I could go.
What's the movie? Zoolander? Is that
no? Yeah.
Zoolander, right? Yeah.
I've never seen that.
What?
Oh my god.
It's so bad, but hilarious.
That's like why Napoleon Dynamite bad, but that funny.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna. I think it's the ship sailed from you boys.
Yeah, you're in your 40s, so no. At like 25, you would have found it hilarious.
Right. It's like if you hadn't seen like Happy Gilmore.
Let's
like I
this
showed
one
my
does.
kids Happy Gilmore, and they were like, "This isn't even that funny."
Yeah. There he is. Look at that. You should have came in as that, Chad.
Oh my god, look at your filter.
Huh?
What filter? He doesn't have a filter.
Can we move on?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah,
Back to our regular
Weekend was
schedule.
great. We all did sports.
Program.
Fantastic. Yeah. I don't
All
know.
right.
So
So how
honestly, I want to say something. I'm like a little grumpy because the weather. Like the weather just turned on us. Like
it was 75 last week.
Right. And now it's like 6.
Yeah.
And there was snow on my car yesterday.
Look, I'm going to Dallas on
You should
Thursday
stay
night for the high is 50. The lows are 32 to 50 the whole time I'm there. That's the temperature.
I was in Dallas on Christmas last year, and it was gorgeous. I went to the Cowboys game in a T-shirt. It was awesome.
I'd
Yeah,
like
you
to
never
do
know
the
what
little
you're gonna
finger
get
right
out.
now, but I don't think I can figure out how to bleep
It'd be
that out.
awesome if you did it and she blurred it.
What if I went?
Oh, the ring finger?
Ever tell you?
Teddy.
Take it.
Yeah, one time I remember one time in the winter I was like super excited because I was like going to Vegas and it was awful here. And I get to Vegas and it was like 48 degrees.
Yeah, it's like 46.
And I was like, this is not what I guess
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Lindsay's little sister just went to Sedona like over the weekend, and it was like 26 there. And she's like, I think I made a mistake.
Sedona, California?
No, Arizona.
Oh.
But near Flagstaff, where it actually gets cold. I don't think she realized that until
Like desert.
Every time I hear the name Flagstaff, I think of the Ron White skit where he's like, I took a puddle jumper from Phoenix to Flagstaff.
Remember stuff like that.
Because he's gotten because he moves out all the stuff that he should remember, hacks it in with that stuff.
All the necessary stuff he doesn't keep.
Like you ask him like something from like about work related stuff from last week. He's like, I don't know.
Huh?
But Ron White did a skit back in 04 that I remember, and it's the only thing. What's wrong with you?
Today's a funny one.
Yeah, not to anybody
we haven't
else.
seen each other in a while, man.
Yesterday, man. It was yesterday.
Well, yeah, but
like real, like in the show setting, like
Oh,
Yeah.
Because
Like,
this
I've
is so
been
much
MIA.
different than real life.
Yeah, I've been MIA. So
Are we gonna do a live one in December when we're all together?
Welcome to Miami.
Ami.
He said MIA. That's the airport code. Miami.
Wow. Thanks.
At least I think it is. It may not be. I don't know. Grave digger.
We're gonna go to HOU. Oh, Houston.
Hey.
Oh,
All right, the rails are off the tracks. So
I'm not sure they got on it
that's
today.
not the term. That's not it. The rails are off the track. See, you know why? Because you have Flagstaff from 04 stuck in your brain. You can't remember a simple euphemism.
The best part was Chad didn't catch it either.
I didn't either.
Gonna go with
Tracks
it.
are off the
I was
rails.
Euphemism that's supposed to be there.
Tracks are off the rails, boys.
The rails are off the tracks.
What the?
Oh.
All right, let's move on. What
All
are we
right,
doing?
let's go
What?
into Joe's idiom corner.
I don't have one.
I
I have your idiot corner.
You did it in the interview.
Well, then watch the interview. I'm
I
not
thought
doing
we were
it
going
again.
to talk about you doing it in the interview.
Nah.
No, okay, good planning, I guess. We said this yesterday.
No, you did.
Yeah,
Remember, like in the first 60 episodes, when we had like a plan.
yeah. I printed off a schedule every week and emailed it.
No,
You
that
did
lasted
that.
for like 3 weeks.
You did that for 3 weeks. Don't make it
I
sound like
still
you
have
did
them hanging
Oh.
behind me somewhere.
Don't say.
The agenda.
Teddy acts like we stopped in week 60. No, it was like week 3 where you ran out.
The flow
You're-
sheet.
The tracks were off the rails. You know.
The tracks are off the rails. The tracks are off.
Sometimes it's hard knowing you guys. I ain't gonna lie.
the feeling is so mutual.
I know. I listen. I understand.
Yeah, that's the best part of it. Why is the creepy cat up?
Because that's where I feel like this whole conversation started. And it's,
All right, we're gonna do a gas fact.
Is that cat like this?
If you guys want to sing about it, go for it.
That cat is sitting there going.
What is happening? These guys were professional. No, they weren't.
Ready? I want that sweatshirt, Kubo. I'll trade you.
Gas bag,
Joe's gas
gas bag.
So we're just gonna ignore the fact that I want to trade.
gas back.
Gas bags.
Back to Joe.
In Vegas. You were in Vegas, and it was right next to it.
What are we ignoring, Joe?
I just
Decided
wanted.
to-
I tried to trade sweatshirts with Chad, but he didn't acknowledge.
I ignored you.
He did. He ignored me.
Text me later.
I want to do it now. Let's make a deal. Let's make a deal now. You know what, Chad? You get one of these.
Rude. Ted looks like he's just got a bad email.
What happened, Ted? Is just the side of your house just fall down? What's wrong?
When
Did you just watch your cat get hit in the street? What happened?
We'll talk about it later.
Oh, but I want to talk about it now. The rails are off the track.
Where's the gas?
rails are
Where's
off
the
the track.
gas back? Put your rails
All
back
right.
on, would you?
So yeah, I'm ready. Put my gas
Not
back
that
on.
phrase.
The United States used 30.28 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in 2021. So that's the equivalent of 3.135 quadrillion BTUs, which also accounts for 32% of our total US energy consumption. So total consumption of energy in the United States, 32% of it was natural gas. With that being said, there's some states that utilize natural gas more than others. I think we all know that, right? Some are coal more, some are more electric, some are more renewable. However, I think really quickly, if you had to just blurt out the name of the state that uses the most natural gas, what would you guys say? Really quick.
Wow,
Just-
that's a
come on, it's a really easy one.
I want to
Really
say New
easy.
York City.
No. Okay, couple of things. I said state.
Yep.
So New York City is not a state. So we'll swing back to that later.
All right.
The state. Think about the state that would use the most natural gas. It's really easy. It's a big state. We were just
Texas.
talking about it. Texas. Thank
Texas.
you. Yes. So we all
Just seems
know.
odd.
Just
You
guess,
wouldn't,
Chad?
you wouldn't assume that. I wouldn't assumed it was Texas. I
We
just
all
would
know.
assume it was somewhere that got cold all the time.
You know what's funny is that my gas fact or poll is phrased like this. We all know Texas consumes and uses more natural gas. Apparently we don't. So we just
I thought it was New York City.
than any other. Yeah, I think we need to give you a quick geography lesson. So Texas uses more than any other state in the country. But what state is the second largest consumer? And I'll give you guys want multiple choice?
St. Louis.
Close.
Yes, I want multiple choice.
All right. Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, New York, not New York City, Florida, or California.
I was not going to guess one of those four. Pennsylvania.
Goes
New York.
California.
Really?
Anybody else
I
find
would
that ironic?
never guess that.
That is
Because-
freaking hilarious.
So in order, the interesting thing is, so this is in trillion BTUs or whatever. I don't know. But Texas uses more than double what California uses as the largest consumer. And then everybody falls underneath California. But so it's Texas 1, California 2, Louisiana 3, Pennsylvania 4, Florida 5, New York 6, Ohio 7th, Illinois 8th, Michigan 9th, and Indiana 10th.
See, I thought Michigan would have been much higher.
Well, you're just assuming that because you're thinking natural gas heat cold, right? That's what you're thinking.
Yeah,
Natural
and it's
gas is
not.
used for a lot of other things. Like it's not
Yeah.
just for heating.
And even, you think of Texas, it still gets cold enough where you have to have heat every year for the
Yeah.
most part, almost all of it. You know what I mean?
it's not even that either, but that's where a lot came from. So it's kind of easy, like it's there, right? Like,
Yeah.
So and that makes sense for Pennsylvania too. But California was an odd one to me. When I saw that, I was like, man, that doesn't kind of mesh with what like
You
people
see.
It's just
think.
so
Yeah, but perception. That's not your
So
perception.
if it makes you feel that you guys feel bleh, if it makes you feel you guys feel any better, how? My goodness.
So I think the rails are off the tracks again.
I went Teddy time on me, so myself.
Anytime.
So right now the voting is so far with the responses are 39% have said California, 5% have said Florida, 39% also have said New York, and 16% have said Pennsylvania. So
16. That's it.
16, yeah.
Wow.
Because I think most of these people cheat. They just Google it.
Google it.
I know some
Google it.
people cheat.
You think they
Google it.
actually stop and look and Google it because they said
I
Joe's
would.
poll?
That's who I am. I would have to.
Joe's
Wow.
saying that because he 100% would cheat every time he answers a poll.
I do.
So
Well, see, but that's not necessarily cheating. Like I have my answer and then I look it up because I want to know more about the answer. I don't want to just like randomly. say it.
But do you answer the poll before you look it up?
Men's and men's, 50-50.
what's that from? Is
Depends if I know for sure.
Men's and men's.
that from
I don't
Seinfeld
know.
or Friends, Joe?
I don't think either.
Oh.
Why don't you go back to the Teddy brain and in 1973 they said it in a movie.
Jerry
with-
Seinfeld in the
Sorry.
third episode. 4
George
minutes in.
Costanza, Seinfeld, guaranteed.
He didn't say men's.
Lock
and
it in.
men's. No,
Lock it in.
that's wrong. Dude, I've seen
Lock it
every
in.
Seinfeld episode. You're not right on that one. He may have said it, but that's not where it comes from.
Lock it in.
It's where it came from in my world.
Oh, Teddy, unfortunately, in your 38 years of life, it doesn't.
39, about to be 40. Thanks for forgetting my age, scumbag.
At least I went the right way. You just call me a scumbag.
You did.
Wow.
Those horses are heading towards the tracks.
It's an active day today. Active day in the background.
All right,
Can we-
so
can we- yeah.
I'm gonna introduce our guests that we have coming in here, okay? And we'll let you know what Joe says that came from on the other side of the interview.
Probably not.
I'm looking
Maybe.
it up.
Oh,
So
we will.
today we have our good friend Adam Day joining us. Adam is a integral part of the Northeast Gas Association, formerly with a utility in the Northeast, a very large one. We'll let you figure it out. I think it comes out in the interview. But
It's
Adam,
National Grid.
it's National Grid. Okay. So Adam, we first met Adam when Chad and Joe put together the Upscale Corrosion Expo, and he was kind enough to grace us with his presence and present that for us.
Yeah.
Since then, this guy's been just making waves in the industry as far as a real young up and comer that's pushing against some of the barriers. And I'm proud to call him a friend. And we want to welcome to.
And he's much bigger than we thought he was. We talk about that.
We talk about that. Yeah, he's not. He makes you two look like dwarfs. So that's the right word.
Wait until you see that. Wait until you see the thing we got you wearing. For
Again,
AJ.
I would like to
Anyways.
point out something to you, Teddy. You didn't do anything additional in life to get tall. It's not like you ate better or you worked out more. You just happen to have that genetic pool. So being
just-
tall isn't a characteristic of
Somebody
like,
peed in mine.
All right, without further ado,
United
welcome
States.
to the show, Adam Day. Hello, Adam, and welcome to Connections for Life. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, guys. How are you this morning?
Better now that your technical issues are solved.
well, since we've been on the phone with you for 45 minutes trying to figure
We're
out.
just
how to
gonna
get
send,
audio.
we're gonna send Northeast Gas Association a bill for IT services.
We've been on so long, I'm
No
now
big
eating
deal.
mango on the show, on the program. Don't care. Don't care. Nice shirt.
I'm on my
again.
third cup of coffee. Just trying to get through the day.
Monday, fellas.
You
all
look
day.
good, buddy.
So,
Look great.
well,
You know
what's
what's
been up,
funny?
buddy? How have you
Wait a
been?
minute. Wait a minute.
Good.
Really quick. Before we go
Let
on.
Joe,
And,
let Joe's, look, Joe needs to say something. Look at him.
Oh
Go
gosh.
ahead.
Was anybody else surprised? Because we've never, up until recently, we hadn't met you in person. We'd gotten to know you.
Yeah.
It's been like a year. We met him like a year.
It was more than that.
What? No, we knew him before that, but like in person, we
Are-
met him like a year ago.
I think
right.
I know what you're gonna say.
I didn't realize how tall and big you
I
were.
thought he was like 5'4".
I thought you were like a little dude, and I met you, and I was like, "Hey, man,
I'm like,
what's up?"
Oh, hey,
Well, I met
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
in the parking lot at the Appalachian Short Course.
and that's
Yeah, I
why we
know,
didn't know
you
who
tried
it
to
was
take my
because
wallet.
you were
It's 'cause I met-
gigantic and we thought you were 5'5".
I met
Yeah.
Ted first
Yeah.
at the.
Well,
Ooh,
Ted's
sorry.
tall, so it was no surprise. Then we met
You guys made eye contact.
But
Yeah.
listen, he does have hands.
He's like, "There's Adam Day." I'm like, "Where?"
Like I'm a basketball player. I have big hands, and Adam like shook my hand, and it was like, "Wait, the wee little hand."
Yeah, think how mine was.
Wee
It was
little
like,
hand.
Mine looked like
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
Just disappeared. Anyways, you're big. We know. Hello.
Well,
Nice to see you.
During COVID, it was weird, like meeting people at work and then meeting them in person. You think you know what they're going to look like, even with video. And
Yeah.
then you see them in person. It's like, whoa.
we
That was
talked
always-
about that a lot. That we
Yeah.
talked, there was
Well-
people that we had never met, and then we're like, we never knew how tall you were until because
Yeah.
everybody's like this,
Well,
Well, when I met-
Double Day, I'd
Yeah.
never met in person until the summer NGA, and we're in the bathroom together, and he's got that big hat on, and I'm like, I know that guy.
I've never met him.
I
No?
interviewed him
Really?
twice.
Never in
Twice.
person. Never in person.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we met Adam. He was like, "I can't believe how good looking you are." He said to me, which was really like,
Man,
It was
so
not
much more
like
handsome
that.
in
It
real
was
life.
not
what he
like
said. It was weird. I don't mean to blow you up.
that. No, I think I said you put on a lot of muscle, is what I said.
Yeah, I'm huge.
Huge guy.
Ow.
Big fella.
I think I just hurt myself. I got
All right, so let's get this shindig on the road, boys. Get the
Oh,
rodeo.
it was a good meeting. Good seeing
Thanks, Adam. It's fun.
Thank you for joining us.
Go ahead, Joe. You always get the first one.
Dude, we're gonna ask you the same question we've asked 108 times previously. Maybe 107 times. How'd you get your start in the industry? I know we met you when you were over at the gas utility, but now you're with NGA. So just kind of how did you get started and how'd you end up where you are?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is more people I meet in the industry, it's pretty interesting that most people weren't looking to come into this industry. It seems like a lot of people find it or it finds them, I guess. They weren't out there looking. They weren't like, oh, I'm going to go into the gas industry.
There's
It
not
almost
a lot of college
has-
courses.
Yeah, no, but it almost has a nicer feel because of that. So
True.
I don't know, but I went to college out at University of Buffalo, and
UB.
had some. Yep, for civil engineering. Thought I was going to be a bridge engineer or design homes, and met some people. And this one girl that was in our group, she knew I hated being in the city, and her mom and boyfriend had a camp in the Adirondacks and was like, "Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they'll get me out of here." Drove up past Watertown, in the middle of nowhere, and met this guy that worked at National Grid, and he was like, "You ever thought about National Grid?" And I didn't know they had engineers, didn't know they had gas because I don't have gas where I live. It passes through my town, but we just don't have it, so I didn't really know anything about it. And so got into the corrosion world kind of that way.
Do you still not have gas where you live now?
No.
You
So
bought
it
a house that
passes-
didn't have gas.
So half of the town does, half the town doesn't.
So wait, really quick. I know where are you from originally?
So Stockport, New York, where I am right now.
Where's that?
It's about 30 minutes south of Albany on the east side of the Hudson River.
So you're near like Socrates?
In just across the river from that, just a little
Okay.
bit north and across the river. About
Like
an hour north of Poughkeepsie.
that's where what was Woodstock was near there, right?
Yeah, south. Yeah, well, it's about an hour and a half, probably south.
Okay,
It's near Christian.
right.
The-
Yeah, he's not far. I'm
I
looking
always
at it
say
now,
like Hudson, New York's like a really popular city now that people from the city are coming up to, and
So what did
Kinderhooks
you?
were-
I want to go back to the camp thing. What
Yeah.
did you just have? Did you just were like, oh, I'm gonna go work up at there and do whatever?
No, it was just like they had like a house on a lake, and they were just like, "Hey, you want to go for the weekend and get out of Buffalo?"
And then you just never left.
Yeah, no, we went there for the weekend, and her mom's boyfriend liked me and wanted to know what my plans were after college, and I applied a few places, but didn't have any strong leads. I knew I interned at the state, didn't really want to go there, and didn't really know where I was going to wind up, and so I just kind of interviewed and went from there.
So what did you do for what was the
Yeah,
first?
so
role you had
I got
for it?
hired. Well, I got hired. They told me I had a job. Then I got pulled out, and then I got reinstated. It was kind of weird, but originally I was supposed to.
They
be
ran a background check, huh?
That's how I am.
I was supposed to be a corrosion engineer out of Syracuse, Albany, somewhere in that range,
Yep.
and then under the NIMO area, and then the person that was going to move like backed out at last minute, so they
Wow.
pulled the job out. And then I got a call like a week before graduation, and they said, "We have an opening in Lowell, Massachusetts. Would you consider that?" And I'm like, I don't even know where Lowell, Massachusetts is. Like, I'm in Buffalo. And I didn't really leave New York too much growing up, and so I had no clue where it was. And I talked to my parents, and they were like, "Look, get in there. You can always transfer around if you want to in a few years." So I took it, and that was actually Don Doubleday's job.
Yeah,
Your
I was just gonna
parents-
say that's where Don's
Yeah.
from. I mean,
Yeah,
Your
there's-
parents
so-
were like, "Dude, get a job. Just
Get
get
out.
come back
They
to
were
our
like,
house."
wherever Lowell is,
Wherever it
it sounds
is, take it.
amazing.
Yeah.
So what was funny was I took Don Doubleday's job. I had his desk and everything, and he introduced me to everyone. I mean, he was already retired at this time, but he came in and
Wouldn't that be like like Don Doubleday's an industry icon, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes. Hey, we're gonna give
Corrosion
your
side.
job that you had to some kid fresh out of college.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the
How
How
funny
bad
thing,
did he break your stones? I have to
Yeah.
know how bad he broke your stones. 'cause
his favorite
it's-
thing to tell people is that I'm single day, he's
Yeah.
double day. I'm only
we know, we've heard it
So,
multiple times.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny, and the little office was great. Everyone up there was great.
So did
but
you moved all the way out there, huh?
No, so we had this union contract negotiation going on in Boston.
Right. Yeah, I remember
And
that.
so
strike.
I remember that too. That was a nightmare.
yeah, so they
Yeah.
held me in Syracuse, which wasn't the worst thing. I didn't really know much about Syracuse. I had like a great aunt that lived there, but I actually kind of got to like Syracuse. And so I got trained there for the summer. Like my computer was sent to Waltham, so I didn't have a computer for the first month. So I was just like out on jobs watching like HDBs, like stuff that I
That's
didn't
kind of
really
cool though.
yeah, I didn't know anything about this stuff. And looking back, I'm like, wow, those were really cool jobs.
Yeah,
that I
probably
was
helped, and
doing.
it helped you out a lot, I'm sure.
And then once the work stoppage started going on longer, I got moved to Rhode
You became a
Island.
meter reader.
Yeah, no, they moved
Gas
me to Rhode.
mechanic.
They moved me to Rhode Island to help out down there because people from Rhode Island were getting pulled up. So I was like down in Rhode Island for 8 months as the supervisor of corrosion. I barely knew anything, but that was a good experience too.
That's awesome though.
Can
Can you imagine what the guys
like?
like? You must have had some good guys that like worked for you on that because like, all right,
Oh,
here's a
Listen, Grit,
23-year-old
that's
kid
one
fresh-
thing I have to say about Grit is almost all their corrosion guys are pretty incredible. I have
I
to
had-
say that all the guys I've ever met are pretty salt of the earth and just like good dudes.
yeah, the two people I had down there really knew what they were doing, and they barely needed supervision, and so they kind of just showed me the ropes, right?
Yeah.
And you got it with corrosion. It takes a while to learn it. It's people call it black magic still, and it really isn't once you understand it. But it is a really small community, and everyone like the gas industry small enough. Then you get
Yeah.
into like pressure control or corrosion,
The
and it's
niche of
like,
the niche. It's pretty wild.
everyone knows everyone,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool. So I
We're
got
running out of people to interview.
Yeah. So then after that, I got pushed on to. I was told like, hey, this person left. We need you to take over the bridge program, and it was kind of all over the place. And that's how you guys kind of.
Yeah, but you did a pretty
on.
incredible thing there. I mean, I
That's
think
really
that's
good.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough when I worked for my previous company, Liberty Sales, I don't care. I was lucky enough to actually go out on job sites at night in the city and be out there when they did the bridge work. So I know what challenges you faced, and you did a lot more than they did, like 12 a year then. Like,
Did you still go to bed at 9 o'clock then?
no, this was way earlier in my career. Way earlier in my career. This was probably like 12 or 13 years ago. I was definitely up then.
Yeah, that was it was interesting trying to get lane closures. I mean,
Oh,
there's a lot more to that, you know, and I always say gas guys become gas guys because they don't want to go up in the air, and you know, or they would have been linemen.
Yeah,
So when you cross bridges or you're in tunnels, it's a whole different ball game.
pretty interesting. It was,
I like
it was pretty
that.
wild, all the stuff they had to do.
I mean,
But then-
that's kind of, I was
then
gonna say, that's
COVID
how we met you though, during.
Yeah,
COVID,
no, and
Because of that.
COVID kind of made it even harder because every town, city, and state had different rules and they were constantly changing. Boston wanted hand washing stations, and then you couldn't find hand washing stations because everyone bought them. And then you had to keep the water hot because it would freeze in the middle of the night when you're out there. So my contractors honestly were really good at staying on top of it. And because it was just me operating Mass, Rhode Island, and
Yeah.
New York, upstate, downstate, Long Island. So it was a huge service.
Is that
territory.
program still going on too?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I
They
figured it
split up.
was.
They split up the role because Rhode Island's now Rhode Island Energy under PPL, which is, you know, I'm
Yeah.
really excited working with them again, and kind of the direction they're headed. And then Mass has some folks over there, and then New York has some folks. So they kind of split my role up. But
There's 4
it was
people to do
probably
Adam's
for the
job.
best. It was a lot.
Now there's 7 people that do Adam's job.
Yeah,
I
well,
I guess it kind of lays right into the next question is, like, you know, we know you're with Northeast Gas Association, but what do you do? I mean, what are you doing it's got to be different than what you were doing clearly, but what are you what are you doing every day other
Yeah,
than
so-
not anything at home like we see here?
so you know, I really enjoyed speaking, you know, on what you guys did, which I thought was incredible, when we had that virtual
Yeah.
conference. I mean, that's really what it was. And you know, I had family members that signed up and listened in when I spoke there because I was like, they
Tom,
thought
thank
it
you
was
for the
cool,
numbers.
too.
We appreciate the numbers.
Yeah. No, and they got
It's
the
exactly
certificates too.
$0.
I had like my uncle in finance and my aunt who's a teacher. They all got their certificates from you guys, which was cool.
That's a lot. Joe did that.
I don't
Literally
want to
one-
talk
one
about
by
the
one.
certificates.
Sorry, that's a
But-
bad subject for
Give me
Joe.
3 weeks.
I spoke at AGA too, which was a virtual one, and I spoke at the NGA, which was virtual as well. And the one thing that I kept finding was that best practices were not getting shared the way that, like, I should know who's doing my job at the next company over and call them because they're having the same difficulties that I am. And what are you doing to get through that? And
Our
we should be
industry's
working
really bad
together.
at that.
It's not.
Yeah, no.
Wait a minute. I don't want to say it's really bad at it. Some utilities are really good at it.
Yeah.
And
Some are
really
really bad. The big utilities, I think, communicate pretty well with one another, but I think those like mid-range small get kind of like left out.
But I still don't know if, like, you know, if the supervisor of constructions at Columbia Gas in Ohio is calling the guy at Dominion.
It's
And I
weird.
think
You
that's
would-
kind of what Adam's saying.
you
It's
would-
just, yeah, it's strange.
You would think they'd form like a cooperative or like a group, like
It's called the Joe Ted Chad
So,
Cooperative.
so that's kind of where I see NGA, and I saw that from the outside, you know, and I think about even in other things in my life, like a big snowmobiler, you know, you go on forums and you can find what are the most common issues with the machine
Right.
you have. Why don't we have, like, why don't we
Right.
have that? And, you know, at NGA, we do have stuff like that. And the more and more I found out about NGA, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool that this resource is available. And I feel like we're not tapping into it enough. And then sure enough, you know, got a call from our buddy Don Doubleday about this opportunity that was opening up. And I only thought the NGA like hired like vice president level
Couple people?
folks. Like with like, well, I thought he had to have like 30 years experience. And so, you know, I applied and interviewed, and I don't know why they selected me, but they did. And so
I think you're supposed to be a little like you're supposed
We're
to be
still
like,
wondering
I know
that,
exactly
too.
why they
No,
did
I
it.
mean-
Exactly why they selected me. I was the best, most qualified person for the job.
no,
And he has
I
huge
think-
hands.
I think the
It must have been that shirt.
so working in I work in the OQ and training world, and I mean you guys know my previous role was pretty small in the grand scheme of the whole industry. But I think what they saw was my ability to learn what was out there, and the time that I had in the industry, the amount of knowledge that I had already. And so now I work in the OQ training space. And as I know you guys are all aware of, knowledge, skill, and ability, right? And the states are really pushing on that hands-on ability, and not just writing quizzes, which for me, I think that's great because I was never a written test kind of person. I struggled with written tests. I know there's a lot of folks out there that do. And I feel like it's hard to always show their competency in a written exam.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that hands-on hybrid approach really allows for folks that do this every day to just show, hey, I know what I'm doing. I do this every day. And they're gonna take, it's gonna be easy for them. And the people that are gonna struggle are the engineers of the world and the supervisors of the world that aren't doing these tasks every day physically. So, you know, with that though, we're overhauling the entire program. And we have a lot, like you guys said, there's a lot of small companies out there that don't have big budgets for training in OQ. There's a lot of big companies where their difficulties are a little different. They have a lot of people that have to get qualified. And so building a program that includes those small companies as well as those large companies and what their needs are isn't always easy.
So let me ask you, I mean, are you doing any, like, I know you just briefly mentioned it, but like, for me, one of the things that I thought was interesting is as I started to like, I think maybe get a little more comfortable in the industry, like I really didn't realize how much I enjoyed like, I don't want to say teaching, but speaking in front of people, like conferences and things like that. Is that something that's still on your plate that you're going to be doing? And there's a part two to that question. And part two, with NGA, and with that knowledge that you just said about kind of information sharing, right, is kind of what we were talking about. Do you have the opportunity, or would they give you the opportunity to go speak at like an AGA conference or an SGA or an APGA or any of the other GAs out there to be able to maybe, you know, kind of network, get to know people that are over there? I think the strength of our industry really resides in the strength of these associations being able to communicate and work collectively instead of siloed. So anyways,
no, you're right. So Bob Wilson and Mike Gallinero are working on the PSMS website and group and that information sharing, and what they have going on with the operators, you know, driving where this needs to go is that voluntary information sharing. So, you know, we have, you know, it's not just me there over at NGA, and everyone's got different.
Well, we're the only one, you know, so we know.
But they're working on this idea where it would be like a forum that you could upload, you know, if there's a dump truck that everyone has that, you know, for some reason it doesn't, the first gear unlocks and it rolls. Well, probably somebody else has that issue too. So let's get that in there so we can share that information to get other companies ahead of that, you know, or if there's a valve that fails or something like that. So they're working on trying to build this out. And I know that it's not just the Northeast that's involved in kind of looking at this. I know that they're in conversation with like AGA and SGA and just kind of looking at it from a larger scale. I know that there's even talks about, does this need to be forced on the industry? Can we do this voluntarily? Can we just build a good, strong base that this just becomes part of the culture? And I think that's really the approach. Cultural changes aren't easy, as you guys probably all know, but it gets the best results. Forcing people to do things, it becomes tough. So they're working on that, and we've seen some really good stuff come out of that. You know, I think that it is different from what we're used to. We're used to not sharing information and sharing ideas. So we'll see where that goes. But with the OQ stuff, I think the big thing that I'm seeing is expertise in certain areas like corrosion and pressure control are usually lacking areas of expertise for training departments. You know, you go to a training department and they're expected to train on everything.
Yeah.
And so I've really taken a look at who do we have in our network that can help these folks out? Who can we send there and help with those areas and getting their training up? And so really taking a look at how can we go set the bar higher, not just force the bar, but how can we get to the next level?
Right. I think, hopefully, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, right? I think we can all agree with that. Hopefully, maybe, I don't even know if this is something, but maybe anybody that watches this, if they have questions, would like to reach out to you directly. I think there's a lot of, one of my biggest issues, I've said it a long time is, and these guys have heard me say it a billion times over, is that we do a really good job talking to each other. And I think sometimes that we sit in a room and we have a great meeting involving 8 people, and getting that message to somebody else or being able to convey that to a larger scale, we sometimes struggle with. So hopefully I think that the more of these little programs that we do and that Jim and James does and some other people are doing, I know there's a whole bunch of them out now. I think the more of that just brings it to the public eye and maybe just brings it some connectivity to it. I don't know. We don't have a big social media presence for the gas industry. We're not like the cool, fun industry, right? We're just not. So I think you have 2 different facets. You have the information sharing directly in between utilities, like you said, your dump truck analogy. But I also think there's a responsibility for gas associations and just everyone in general to be able to share the information that they have in their heads to everybody in the general public. I think we still are really struggling on how do we do that and how do we figure out being able to get that information in the next place. So I wish you guys luck. And if there's anything that we could ever do, we're obviously more than I'm happy to help. I don't know. Chad probably won't be. But...
Yeah, don't put words in my mouth, Joe.
Well, and I think we're starting to see that about 6
Busy
months
that
ago.
day.
I was out in Buffalo at National Fuel, and I was taking a plastics class, which was really awesome. They do a good job out there. And I just haven't, I'm trying to make my rounds to all the different companies, and see how they work and what they have. And everyone's really prideful in what they do. And, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about our industry and kind of where we are. But I saw the first commercial for natural gas, and it was wild to me because I don't watch a lot of TV, but just to see a commercial. And then today, actually, I was at the gym this morning, and I saw it here, and it was the same commercial, and also NGA, we do our 811 campaign, and I saw that over the summer. And I think it's starting to change, to your point, Joe, where information is getting out there, but it's slow, right?
This may sound weird, but you said 811. Sorry, Teddy, I'll let you go next. I saw you were gonna go. 811 just focuses in on call before you dig, that campaign, right? And I mean, while obviously that's a huge thing, I don't know if it really directly addresses what people's conception of the industry is. Do you know what I mean? I think it's
they have a big platform. Everybody knows what 811 is for the most part, but it's not being utilized for anything other than that.
Correct. Right. But I'm just saying that's a big campaign that we do every year throughout the Northeast, from NGA perspective.
Interesting.
I mean, we are starting to be more vocal on LinkedIn, and like I said, our government relations Vice President Alana Daly is really engaged with our members and where we're headed. I think that I think everyone wants the same thing. We all want affordability. We all want choice, right? We all want to be able to choose what we want. We don't want to force something on somebody else, but we want to choose. And I really think that that's one of the things that we're focused on, just my perspective of what I see. And the other thing was, on the other side, when I was at the LDC side, it seemed like gas was going away. It seemed like, a lot of corrosion guys are worried that steel pipe's going away because of main replacement going to plastic. And a lot of people are worried that gas is shrinking. But then I come to this side, to the outside, and it's completely opposite.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be in this industry. I looked at the electric side, I looked at the electric industry, but the camaraderie that we have in this industry is just, I don't think there's another one out there like this. And I think we're really going through a quote, Bob Wilson, in saying that we're going through the second great transition. He said that at the New York State Pipeline Safety meeting. And what he was saying is, we started out by cracking coal and making syngas, right? Synthetic gas locally. And we have contaminated sites all over the country because of that. And a lot of natural gas places, you can see old pictures where they did that. And then we transitioned. And the first transition was to interstate pipelines. And so we went to fracking and we went to these other methods of long transportation. And that's kind of where we're at today. And now we're going through this second great transition where we're going kind of almost back to more localized production. We have RNG, we have hydrogen, we have all of these different ideas emerging, which are going to be, to me, so exciting. It gives engineers and construction folks so many ways to think outside the box. You know, I've been doing some reading on gasification, burning wood, you know, waste wood and making gas. Now the BTU content's a little different, but we can blend those things in and make it better. So I think it's not there's no silver bullet for anything, your food, your health. And we have to do the same thing with our energy.
I agree. It's a great point. That was well said. I think that one of the things that I struggle with is that I feel like, as you just pointed out, we have so many different options and potential ways that we can make energy, right? That's literally what we're talking about, is just to create energy, to be able to have, as Dan Pajak always says, life-sustaining energy, right? Like that's really what it boils down to. And everything that we have, everything that we interact with, everything that we utilize in our lives requires energy to manufacture, to all of the things that go along with that. And I think one of the things that I struggle with the most, Adam, is, I just read an article the other day about from the president of Eversource reaching out to the Biden administration, saying that they don't know if there's enough energy to get them through the winter. And I'm going to kind of put this as nicely as I can. That pisses me off. And it pisses me off because there's a lot of people out there that are struggling to either pay their bills, and we're doing things out of just
Policy
it's
over
a
practicality.
policy, right? Over a good way to put it, Teddy, out of practicality. And I think that's what makes everybody nervous. You have like your dual utilities, right? And I see it all the time where you have like, I'm not going to call out the utility, but they don't care. They don't care if it's gas or electric. They prefer it to be electric, to be honest with you. So you see all this messaging, even from people that are engaged and involved in profiting from the sale of natural gas, and having counterproductive ads and information going to electric. And I think it paints the wrong picture for most Americans, because they're not thinking with their head, they're thinking kind of with their heart sometimes. And I don't know if that's going to be the way that's going to make us, a very strong and safe and all of those things country. I don't know. It makes me a little upset that you see, they had the climate change, whatever, the COP27 over in wherever the hell it was, and 400 private jets went there. It just seems there's this attitude where we should be willing to change, but
they didn't even jet pool. You'd think they'd jet pool a little.
I don't know. I don't mean to editorialize.
No.
I get really frustrated when you hear, gas bad, or fossil fuel bad, right?
So Joe, what's interesting is in high school, I worked on a dairy farm around here, milked about 700 cows.
That makes so much sense knowing you.
And I worked there through college.
So big and strong.
And they're basically my second family. And the food industry is in a very similar predicament that we are, as the energy industry. There's a lot of information out there that may not always be accurate. And it's hard to filter through that information. And it used to break my heart to see stuff online that was painting these people as like animals, and not literally, but just like animal abusers. And,
right.
And does it happen out there? Yes, it does, but not everyone's like that. And if we don't have food, we're not going to be able to survive. It's like energy. If we don't have energy, we're not going to survive.
Well, it's kind of like if we don't have energy, we don't have food. I
mean, yeah,
and the whole chain reaction there.
It's a chain reaction. And so, I think we do need to do better as just an industry at educating our neighbors. I know before I left the utility side, there was a vice president that just came on board of like public engagement, and he spoke and said, we need to do better at producing the facts and giving our employees the ability to, at their kids' baseball game or at their kids' basketball game, talk to their neighbors and explain to them, you know, the truth and what we're doing and where we're headed. And we have to like look to our neighbors more. You know, I think even with COVID, there was a lot of stuff that was going around that we needed to start talking to our neighbors. You know, we needed to get back to the community.
The problem with
So,
that is,
hold on,
and
Joe, hold on. I got to get one in here. All right. So you actually circled it. What that point I was trying to say with Chad a few minutes ago and brought it back up here. And that communication aspect, the media that is being used to communicate news and information now has never been more readily available to the masses. And our industry has to take on the responsibility of using those platforms to be the vessels that are delivering it, as opposed to the conventional methods, which are, you know, mainstream news and this kind of stuff. So championing programs like, you know, what NGA's causes are, AGA's causes are, just the utility sector's causes are, is going to be key, but it's going to take place with guys like us sitting in a room, being the ones to be the tip of the spear on it, so to speak, because if we're not, no one's going to right now. And then our industry is going to be adversely affected because of it. So
Well, and that's part of the reason why I came to NGA, because I wanted to be on the front line. If I'm going to be in this industry, I need to be on the front line because I'm young.
There's nothing worse than somebody complaining about it not being done right, but not being willing to put their hat in the ring and say, I'll do whatever I can to help.
Well, and you all have joined numerous committees now to get more involved with that. And it's not for financial gain. It's
I'm getting rich.
I'm actually
actually, it costs more.
It costs more.
I've actually lost money. I don't know how that works.
Because you guys feel that it's the right thing to do.
Correct.
And you know, and I think that's part of it.
But to Teddy's message, and Ted, I absolutely agree with you, but there's nobody or no one that has taken the forefront approach to be that like voice of the industry, right? Like, so where you're bombarded with information, right, wrong, or indifferent information, from electrification to fossil fuels bad, to green energy, to cleaner climate, all of that, you're bombarded with that. Yeah. I don't care how many messages we start putting out right now, we're never going to get to a point where we can compete with that. There's, first of all, no money in it. Okay. That's really what it boils down to. And secondly, I kind of agree with Adam that it's almost got to be that grassroots effort, neighbor to neighbor to neighbor. And it's got to be completely fact-based. It can't be, I find myself a lot of times getting in conversations with people that don't understand. And instead of just being like, I guess, like not getting upset, like with their lack of knowledge, I think that's where we get lost sometimes, because it turns into this versus like shaking hands and go, look, we all want the best thing for our families, right? At the end of the day, that's a pretty common denominator for most human beings. They want the best in life for themselves and their family, right?
In the future, the next generation.
Correct. And so you got to look at that, and you have to like literally have a fact-based conversation. The problem is that I feel like when you try to do that, you're met with so much resistance because there's like an anger built up over like fossil fuels, or like you're ruining our planet, or you don't understand. And it's like, man, no, you just take a second to listen. And I sometimes struggle bridging that making that kind of peace offering and saying like, while I appreciate what you're saying, I need you to appreciate what I'm saying. I think we've created such a society that's so divided that sometimes we don't have the respect for our fellow human being to be able to open our ears and listen. We're too busy holding the line that we're right and you're wrong. And I don't know how to get past that. And I think our industry doesn't know how to get past that. I think we struggle with that.
But that's where I think social media becomes difficult, because you don't necessarily know the person that's posting.
Right. There's no emotional attachment to it.
No, and you don't know if you can trust that person. But when you go to your neighbor and then explain to them, you know, food, energy, and then that neighbor goes to the next neighbor. I mean, we all go to our doctor and we trust our doctor because we have a rapport with them. They're local, you know.
I got VA healthcare.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
I do not trust my doctors.
No, I don't trust any doctors.
Well,
maybe you go to your local
lawyer. Go to your lawyer.
Go ahead. Great job in the example.
You trust the UPS guy to deliver your package, right? I mean,
he does a pretty good job.
we all have a job, and we all have a role to teach, and we all have a role to get the messages out there, but we all have to be open to hearing other people's ideas as well.
100%.
True.
And that's the part where I think a lot of people struggle is, and even myself, I didn't want to hear anti dairy industry stuff, or I didn't want to hear electrification, but I was listening to a podcast on solar from Stanford, because I think we need to diversify our knowledge base too. I was reading an article in the Boston Globe about a company down in Rhode Island that was the guy was out of the aviation industry, and he was building leakless valves. And I was like, well, this is somebody that's coming from a different industry into this industry, because they found technology that could be
For $4,000 each.
Yeah, but they won't leak.
I agree with you. I think we get stuck in that. And I think there's different people in our industry too. There's people that, like, I think all of us like really care and have a passion for what we're doing. And some people are just like, it's a job, I don't really care. Right. Like,
no, you're right.
You can't go in with the expectation that everybody's going to have the same level of want and involvement and engagement. Some people just and give a shit, right? Sorry, I'm probably not supposed to say that.
That's a bad word. Oh,
To this episode.
Wait a minute, really? I got an idiom for that. You guys want to hear it really quick? Where the word shit comes from? Anybody?
you just said it. You might as well just.
You
say
got to
it
give
again.
them
We
away
have to tell her to believe
they
it.
come back to watch it.
Do you know where it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
from?
No.
Back in the day when they used to ship manure as fertilizer, they would stamp S period, H period, I period, T period on crates. And it stood for ship high in transit, because they would off gas, so they didn't want to put them in the bellows of a ship. So that's where.
Thank you. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Sorry, just breaking up the monotony.
So speaking of that, let's move on to this next subject here, because we have beat that down, but in such a good way. All right.
No, but
So let me ask-
to finish
Go
that
ahead.
out, I do think that we're the industry, we're starting to get there. I do see more, and what you post online, I think is great with the facts, and those that don't follow Joe probably should. But I've learned some stuff, and I think we all need to do, instead of like going through our Instagram feed or going through TikTok, like we need to spend time and read.
Can you imagine if like everybody posted like 3 things a day, how quickly that would spread? Like, that's my whole approach to it. Like, if I spend 3 things a day that creates some messaging that people learn from, then it's a win, right? So Chad doesn't follow me or Ted.
So sorry,
I
Ted.
follow you. I just don't follow you.
No, you're good. You're good. So we've been going. I think we only really got probably one more in here, because I know how it's going to go. So I'm going to
Question 2.
I'm going to skip ahead and move to, as we've talked about this and alluded to several points of it in the previous questioning, where do you see the future of this industry going? Okay.
Yeah. So,
What Adam needs to tell us, he just took a job at the electric company.
no. So, one thing that's interesting that I thought about, and Charles actually said this about electric vehicles, right? He said it's a natural gas vehicle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because where does the energy come from? And I think that it's kind of like food, where a lot of people are buying more local produce food, because they're saying, well, where's my food coming from?
Yep.
Right. In the 90s, we wanted the cheapest food, and now people want to know where their food's coming from, and they want quality. And I think that's the same thing we're going to see with energy. Where's my energy coming from? I want to know where it's coming from, and I want to know how it's affecting the environment. And so I think we're going to see more RNG. I think it would be fantastic if we could help farmers, if we could help these food suppliers reduce their emissions, but also produce localized energy. I do think we're going to see hydrogen in specific places. I don't think it's going to be everywhere, but I think it has a role. I think diversity is going to be key, but I think overall, we all want to be better stewards of the land. I hunt, I fish, I like to be outside, I snowmobile. How many snowmobile trails in the Adirondacks are on right-of-ways, pipeline right-of-ways? I mean, it's amazing. I used to say all the time that that's not promoted enough, how many deer and animals live on these right-of-ways and are able to. So I think that
That's a
we're
good-
going to see a shift in that focus. And I think that's the direction. But I think at the end of the day, we need to continue to allow choice. I think people should have the choice. We shouldn't force things on people. And that's kind of where I see it. But, you know, what motivates me, I think, is being able to say that I'm continuing to supply the cheapest energy source in the country, the safest way. And I think that's
the most reliable.
And the most
And
reliable.
efficient. And efficient.
And efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at the efficiency numbers, it's like it blows my mind.
Yeah,
Before,
yeah.
you know, I just looked at the outside of the pipeline and was like, I don't really care what's running through it. I'm just stopping it from corroding.
Yeah.
Now I'm
Yeah.
starting to learn what's going on inside, and I'm like, this is amazing.
Joe
Isn't it-
said this one fact one time, and I mean, it's like I keep it in my back pocket for all these conversations when they're trying to spread the awareness of it. And I don't know the exact dates that he said, but essentially he's like, yeah, we use the exact same amount of natural gas that we did in 1980 right now. We're just that much more efficient at using it. There was X amount of services in 1980, and we used this much natural gas. And in 2022, we used the same exact amount of
And
natural
there's
gas.
millions more
millions
services.
more customers.
Yeah, I think
And
it's
that's
something like
crazy.
91% efficiency when you have natural gas come directly to your house and burned. 92. And then it's like 36% when it comes as electric and converts back.
Which
Yeah.
makes zero sense to me that we would lose energy because of making ourselves feel good. Just like you said about the vehicle. Like you're losing energy by doing that. Like that doesn't make sense to me when we're already in a society where we're saying we have energy shortages. We're willing to lose efficiencies. It doesn't
But I think what's important once again is the choice, right? I think the best we can do is educate people and on, you know, what we know, and if at this time, right, and in 20 years what we know is going to change, and
Sure.
technology will keep improving. But, you know, NiSearch, which is underneath the NGA umbrella, I really didn't know all the projects they're working on, and Daphne and her team have brought me in a little bit to see on some of these projects and the methane reduction projects that they have
Yeah.
going on, and kind of the future of energy. And I mean, some of the research is just so impressive on where we're going. I mean,
I wish the public could see that we're not just standing on the outskirts going, you know, we're better, and saying we're trying and here's what we're doing. Like none of that messaging ever gets conveyed. It's just we're bad and we should get rid of
Not
it.
going to.
I don't know if it will or won't. It will when,
Not-
here's the thing. It will when people are forced to make decisions that impact their lives.
Yes,
That's when
right.
it will change.
let's
And it
let's
hasn't
let's,
hit
re- let's look at history, because I do think history repeats itself, and I think that also we can learn from history, right? So let's look at a time when there were a lot of energy shortages. Let's look to World War II, right, in Europe. And so one of the things that's pretty interesting is that what do you do to like have a country give up? You cut them off of resources, you cut them off from food, you cut them off from
Right.
energy. And so back then, all the countries were sucking up everyone's energy, and people didn't have oil, gas to run their cars, diesel. And so they made these gasifiers where they would build these gasifier chambers, burn wood, can make gas from it. It was, you know, it had some other things in it, and they didn't separate it, but you get the air and fuel mixture, right? And you can run a car that way. And they were mounting these to the backs of cars, and they were
Right.
running cars and tractors on wood.
Necessity is the other mother of
I mean,
invention, huh?
But that's all coming back around with,
Yeah.
and now with technology, we can be that much more direct. We know what molecules are in there.
We need to
can-
go back, Joe, and revisit the thing in Pittsburgh that we found that time, which was, I don't know if that ever got off the ground or not. It was
Transitioning gas to electric at the home.
at the house, like this company.
Oh,
was-
at the house.
Oh, in a little box that
It
wasn't.
was
much
like, it
bigger
was a
than
box like the size of like.
a
I
small
don't know.
shed, like a tiny shed.
No,
right?
it wasn't that big.
Oh, it was even
No.
smaller. It was like
It
a,
was 3 feet by 3 feet, maybe.
and
it
you
would
took gas, it literally took gas in and electrified your entire house out of
your
the box.
house.
That's awesome. But I
But
think like
I think it
those-
kind of died off because people get worried about bringing the gas to there, like.
But what
but that
the
is.
part that I think when we see these kind of innovations happen is when energy prices rise. And so, you know,
That's true.
with the unfortunate thing is with the energy rise is the people that suffer, the people that can't afford it, and
Low income.
that part is what breaks my heart, because I've lived in like we don't, like I said earlier, we don't have natural gas where I live. It passes past me. I wish we could. So we're on oil, and we have a wood stove as backup. And when oil prices were high,
Oil's rough, man.
when oil prices were high,
You burned a
last
lot of
time,
wood.
we burned a lot of wood, exactly.
Yeah.
But I have the ability to do that because I can split
have
my
a
own
choice.
wood, and I have a choice, exactly. And that's what's so important. And I think that's what people want, is people want the choice, and then from that they can decide what's best
for
for their life and what's best for the environment based on
Isn't that really to go down to the baseline of everything that, like, not just energy, but everything about humanity? Like, we just want to be able to have freedom and a choice to have that freedom, and a choice to have that freedom. Freedom to have
that's why we live. That's why we live where we live, right?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So,
For
as,
now.
you know, we just celebrated Veterans Day last Friday. You know what I mean? And as a vet, like, one of the biggest things that, like, I really embodied is I'm not gonna agree with all the choices that the people that are in the world, that in the United States make, right? But it's not as a vet, it wasn't I didn't go and fight for them to make the choice I wanted them to make. I went and fought for them to have the right to be able to choose. Now, I'm not going to agree with it, but that's okay.
Exactly.
All right. We have to get to that point as a society where we're okay with people choosing something that we disagree with. All right. Because that is the root.
That's how broken we are at this
Well,
point.
we are very broken as a society. We're very broken as a nation. You know,
But I think we have
it's
to
a
have
difficult
hope.
time.
And I think we have to have hope, and I think we have to continue like one foot in front of the other.
Look at
right?
Joe
Like,
being the
what I see-
what
Voice of
else
reason.
is there? What else?
Voice of
What else
reason.
is there?
But what
What
I
else-
see, guys, is like I was reading a research paper the other day about
Stop
lining
reading.
Start reading 3 minutes ago.
Not me, him.
lining the inside of pipes to stop hydrogen from seeping in, right? Hydrogen embrittlement, everyone talks about that being an issue, and like, but there's some of these smartest minds we have are looking into these things. And if we were just passing natural gas through, everything was standard quo, it was cheap, and we were just constantly expanding, I think we wouldn't have these focuses. So in one facet, we're the underdogs, and it's difficult, but then in the other facet, I see like these great projects coming out of it, and that's what I think is really cool.
Well, it's also like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like progressive. Like we're looking at new things and that's exciting to be able to take where we're at and where will we be in 20 years and what will the future look like for our children and our children's children, right? Like it's an exciting time to have this much technology, this much know-how, and be able to try to harness it into being a better society and a better world. I think that's all very exciting. Sometimes we get lost in that. Yeah. So anyways, we got Teddy.
That's it. I was just gonna say, Joe, bring us to a close. If not, I'll
Oh, you
start.
want me to- no, go ahead.
It has been an absolute honor. This really invigorated me getting back into the flow of things as I've been off a little while, man. I love your energy. I love your passion for the industry. I'm really excited to see the
It's
things
not
you
like
do
your
at
shirt,
MGA.
though.
What?
I said you do not like his shirt, though.
No, his shirt reminds me of like Al Bundy coming home from the shoe
Oh
store.
boy.
Shoe sale.
Okay, just saying.
Oh,
So
boy.
listen, I love you, man. I really do. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining
Thanks,
us. I
Adam.
know Joe and Chad are gonna have to say goodbye as well, but just from me to you, man. You
I
know
just
love
go.
you.
Nah, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's awesome talking to you. I'm glad we got to know you the way that we did. And I think it's really kind of cool that COVID allowed us to form some friendships and meet people that we'll probably know for the rest of our lives. And I really appreciate that about that time and also our show. So thanks for being a part of it. We hope to see you on here again.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Adam.
Adam.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Adam, thank you. Thank you for joining us on our show. Thank you for finally bringing these things together where we were able to get another person from NGA on here. Again, as I said in the intro, you are a rock star, rising star.
Made the last one leave.
What?
Charles.
Yeah, we did scare Charles off. Yeah, definitely. Like, he interviewed with us and then was like,
Can you
Yeah,
imagine-
and then he was like, I gotta go.
Can you
I'm not being in
imagine-
this industry anymore if I got to deal with these three.
Can you imagine if Adam like put it in? Like, he
That's
was
just
like-
CFL bump. That's what that is.
You said if Adam put in his notice.
The next week we just see on LinkedIn Adam Day is switched jobs.
That would be amazing.
No, it was good. It's Adam's awesome. He's fun to talk to. He's got great energy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and passionate about the industry. I think
He reads a lot too, huh?
Apparently, he says he does.
Anybody that says they read that much, I have a hard time believing. But
Yeah, I don't read at all.
I'm surprised you know how.
I don't even. It's
See,
borderline.
I read like 4 books at a time, but it's like one chapter at a time, and then
I
one
do that
chapter-
too.
One
I do
chapter-
that too, and I read like 3 or 4 different books, and I read clips of them, and then I go to a different one.
Yeah,
I
but it takes me
Yeah.
like a month and a half, 2 months to get through the book.
see. I'm different. Like if I sit down and start reading a book, I'll read it in 3 days.
Yeah,
Like I like it consumes me, and I don't like that.
I don't read fiction, so that's the other thing that's hard for me. Like those fiction novels used to consume me. Like I wanted to know what was next, but I don't read fiction anymore.
I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Like I picked up a book not too long ago and I read it in like a day because I was like, that's what happens. I become manic about it. Shocking, right?
Can we talk about this article and this guy's random hands right here? Who is this?
I don't know.
That's the guy who's
Who's ordering?
ordering the food. He's getting his McNuggets.
Is that a McDonald's menu?
I can't really tell. It looks like it. But,
I think it's a Checkers.
oh,
Of all places, you say Checkers?
That's what it looks like. The logo above Chat's head, kind of right there.
I thought it was a Whataburger.
I thought it was
Mickey as well. The orange Whataburger could be there. Maybe it's
Well,
No, wait.
You say Whataburger?
The what now? Yeah, the 3 now.
the rails are coming off the tracks again.
All right, let's go. I have like 6 minutes.
I mean, no one cares about how much
No one
time
cares how much you have.
Would you? I'll just leave.
Okay,
Then we'll do this.
you guys did it without me.
I thought you really just left.
Here
I was like,
we
that's
go. Our article.
This
Joe.
is pretty crazy.
I'm not. I mean, everybody can read. It comes from Bloomberg, which relatively natural gas flaring is said to rebound in Permian Basin. So basically, my assumption would be, and I didn't read this whole article.
I read it enough to talk about if you want me to.
Well, no, my assumption is going to be that they're drilling for oil, and the gas is a byproduct, and they don't have anywhere to put it, so they're just blowing it off. Like,
They actually, yeah, well, it's sort of it, but they also have more natural gas coming out than they have pipeline capacity, essentially, for natural gas. So they have to, instead of being able to put it in the pipeline, they're literally flaring it off, which is, I mean, if you talk about flaring that gas off, and then you talk about somebody, big utilities leak problems and things like that, it's like you can't
Really
even-
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody's got a pinhole leak on a meter set.
Right. And they're like, you better fix that. And meanwhile, these guys have a 40-foot torch going in the sky.
Well, I think the crazy thing is that you have
Bunsen burner.
that you have people right now on the earth that are having issues with energy, right? Like that's pretty
Yep.
prevalent. Like we hear that all the time. Like even the Northeast, they're like concerned that they're not going to have enough gas for the winter, and like there's like they're just shooting it into the sky and burning it off. Like I don't know, it seems funny to me. It seems really counterproductive. Like
Well, that's a really good way to look at it too. I kind of just look at it as though, we worry about all these tiny pinhole leaks and then we're just going to, just.
Well, you're right about that.
The atmosphere.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
I was looking at that.
I mean, maybe this is a really stupid question. This may be really dumb, but when we flare that off, does it change how it releases into the environment when we burn it like that? And no, I didn't think so. I mean, because I'm just thinking you have a raw natural gas leak, pinhole leak.
Well, natural gas is 90%, 95% methane.
Right.
So I mean,
I don't know. I'm just like, is flaring off okay? Is that why? Like, is that the preferred method because it doesn't do something to the environment, or is it just the only way to get rid of it?
It is in Texas. Like that's what I mean.
That's
no
good,
one would never ever happen anywhere. Like
it happens in Pennsylvania, but probably not at this scale.
Right, that's what I mean. So it's really interesting. Like you got kind of two different things working here. You got not enough energy apparently just to sustain people's lives,
and then we have too much.
And then you have too much, and you're blowing it off into the air. And then you have methane leaks that are like, oh my god,
a little dog. That dog's cute.
He's cute. He's got a little guy in his mouth.
Minecraft guy. Sorry.
So, anyways, that's our
show.
A news article.
That's the show essentially. The show's done.
Little shout out. I got one more meeting or one more email. Wow, more news article.
Tracks are off the rails.
Rails are off the tracks.
I feel like mental today.
Rusty.
Virginia
Whoa.
Beach Nat.
I don't know what just happened, but I
the
looked at all
Whataburger.
my screens.
Well, you're still there, so keep talking. You're doing great.
So Virginia Natural Gas has a milestone. Hayden Berry, at 18 years old, 1972, started with Virginia Natural Gas. He's now 68. He's been there 58 years.
Wow.
Says he has no plans to retire.
What department is he in? Does it tell you?
Let's see. He's he says, I love my job and I'm too young to retire. I love being part of Virginia Natural Gas team and continuing to serve our customers.
I wonder what he does.
Wow. Just listen to this. Hayden grew up in Hampton, Virginia area and was born deaf.
Oh, that's even more interesting.
Disability
Wow.
that never got in the way of pursuing his dreams. Hayden tried college life for 2 weeks after high school, decided it wasn't for him. And then went home and got a job at.
Do you think we could get Hayden on? That would be fun.
He began his career as a meter reader and then as a storeroom keeper, a position that was in for 35 years. Let's see. Now he's back to meter reading. And he
It's a
reads
weird
lips.
progression.
That's what it says.
Seems happy. I like it. Can I
Yeah.
go home now?
I think
50
that's the
years.
end of our show.
50 years. You know how like you've been like, I've been here 10 years.
Jim
It's
McCoy was 53 years.
Yeah. It's crazy. And you know what? You don't really see the employee retention or at least the employee like commitment to an organization. Like this guy obviously lives and breathes his job, regardless of what it is. So, good on him. Hayden,
Pretty
happy,
impressive.
That
happy
is pretty cool.
anniversary. Yeah, very cool.
Considering none of us have lived that long and he's worked there that long.
Right.
I think what got me is the name Hayden. That wasn't necessarily a name that's 60. You don't hear many Haydens that are in their 60s. Like that's not
68.
I don't know. That just was weird to
Is
me
that
too.
true?
Like, I don't know. Most Haydens I know are like teenagers.
So out of
right?
all the things, he's been there for 50 years. He's worked in meter.
That's all I
reading.
got. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
that
more
was my
concerned
that was
with
my
his name is
observation.
Hayden.
That was my observation.
Chad, go order your Big Mac and fries. Let's call it a day.
I'm starving.
Hey, we thank you, Adam, for joining us on the show today. We thank you, NGA, for sharing your. What are you doing?
It's Macy's soccer team. I forgot to
That's
mention
the
it.
first time. That was the first time Joe ever pumped anything's tires.
Yeah,
other than-
shameless plugs. I thought we didn't do no free ads.
Oh no, he put in $3.
Oh, okay, makes sense. Never. But thank you, NGA, for allowing Adam to come on and join us. We encourage you all to like.
Oh, they didn't let him come on.
They don't even know. They do now. Gotcha.
like, click, subscribe, share, all the fun stuff. We'll talk to you guys soon.
I don't think clicking is one of them.